All right, welcome. So, why training is essential for everybody. And when I talk about training, I don't just mean like training for a sport, for example, right? I think I think that type of training, or like bodybuilding, for example, like training in the gym. Physical training isn't the only thing I'm referring to. I'm really referring to like practice of a skill, no matter what the skill, but that can obviously be sports, it can be bodybuilding, it can be whatever, but it could also be something like art. It could be something like, if you're a content creator, it could be content creation, right? So it's basically just practice, it's training, it's building a skill consistently every day, right? So why training is actually essential for every single human being. So the first point on this topic is that growth is life. So we are either growing or we're dying, right? We are never really in the middle. There is no in the middle, right? We live in a dualistic world, and so we are either growing, we are either advancing, we are either evolving in consciousness and in our being, right? Or we're dying, or we're decaying, right? We're going into rest, right? We're essentially breaking ourselves down to be dissolved and then rebuilt by the next human or by the next organism that the earth decides to use our matter for, right? So like we're basically allowing ourselves to cease when we're not utilizing this energy, right? When we're not utilizing the energy of life, right? When we're not utilizing the sexual energies and the physical energies, right, that the earth is giving us, that the earth is providing us. When we stop using these, because we're meant to use these for our evolution, for our growth, when we stop using these, when we stop utilizing them, the earth takes it back, right? The earth takes that energy back, and we will die, we will decay, our bodies will be decomposed back into the earth and then repurposed, right? So in life, the purpose of life, the real purpose of life, right? The only true purpose of life and living is evolution, is growth, is achieving the next level of consciousness, whatever that is for you in your particular experience, right? And to another point, growth is also where we find the most happiness for the same reason, right? Because if we are growing, this is life, right? Growing itself is living. So if we are growing, this is when we're going to be our happiest. This is when we're going to feel the most fulfilled because we are in a state of growth. We are in a state of evolution, and this is what our energy is meant to be used for, right? This is what our bodies were created for, and so it's the best state that we can be in, even if it may be extremely uncomfortable right now because we're doing some difficult workout, or if you're an artist, let's say you've been painting for the last 6 hours and you're still not done, right? It's very difficult right now, but inside, right, in the soul, right, this is the greatest experience we could be having. And even after the fact, right, you can feel this physically as well. You can feel the bliss, you can feel the joy of creating, right, of growing, of advancing in some field, in some area, right? So growth is where we create true happiness, just being in growth, right? So excuse me, a lot of people who are successful, right, they will say like, it seemed like the goal was everything, right? It seemed like the goal was everything they wanted, everything they needed. But they realized on the way to the goal, and then after hitting the goal, right, that the goal really wasn't that important. And you'll notice if you look on YouTube, a lot of like the successful entrepreneur space, and even with athletes as well, you can see a lot of them who have succeeded in their goal will talk about how the moment they hit the goal, it didn't matter. Like it stopped mattering to them. They stopped caring. It really didn't mean much of anything to them. But they will also say that they did still find that fulfillment, but they found that fulfillment on the way to the goal. They found the fulfillment in the growth that it took to reach the goal, not the goal itself, right? And so like goals are important, but because they lead us to growth, right? They bring us through a process of growth, right? And so this is why we need growth. This is why we need goals as well. We need something to be striving for. We need a reason to get better, and we need to be doing what needs to be done in order to get better, right? If we're not doing what we need to do in order to grow, in order to evolve, like I said, we're going to start dying. And at first, this is just going to look like a depression, right? This is just going to look like some stagnancy, right? This is going to look like you seeking out more pleasurable habits, but things that might be harmful in the long term, right? This is where we start seeking out self-destruction rather than self-construction, right? We stop trying to build ourselves up, and because we're doing that, we start dying mentally, internally, and that leads us to desiring these self-destructive habits instead, right? So now I'm going to tell a story of myself. So for the last probably 3 weeks now, I'd say 4 weeks-ish, I've been in just a bit of a rough patch. So you'll see if you go on my channel, I have a video titled Monk Mode, where I was just basically teaching you guys how to create a monk mode structure and then how to go into it. And I kind of mentioned how my next monk mode, I was going to be doing daily uploads. And you'll see on my channel, I didn't end up sticking to that. I wasn't able to get into the full daily upload rhythm. I got it for like a week or two, and then I just fell off. I kept consistent, making sure I was uploading, but I couldn't get into that daily rhythm and stay in that daily rhythm. And I had to end up prioritizing other things, just because I kind of piled too much into that monk mode. I kind of like with school and with work, it was kind of difficult for me to juggle fitness and business with only having like a few hours in the day to do anything with that. So I ended up prioritizing my fitness instead, just because I knew in the summertime I would want to be working more on YouTube, so I'd have that time. So I thought I'd just prioritize fitness, make sure I kept up on my content, make sure I was starting to prepare some of my bigger projects for YouTube still, starting to work on some of my bigger YouTube projects, working on developing a podcast as well. So like I just prioritized a couple of other things than like the daily upload schedule, right? But what happened, the reason I couldn't consistently upload daily was because I went through a period of time that just caused like an extreme depression, right? I had a lot of things in my life come up out of nowhere. I had a lot of bad habits that I just like I couldn't quite kick, and some of them that I had kicked but were starting to seep back in, like social media use. I started scrolling on social media again, which isn't something I usually do at all. It's been like a year and a half since I've actually like had a problem with that. So just like a lot of old habits were coming back and resurfacing. A lot of old like negative beliefs and stuff were resurfacing. So I ended up just in just getting hit with a bunch of just life, right? Just getting hit with life itself. And so what happened was, because I couldn't really focus on my monk mode because I had so much other things that were starting to come up during this period of time, so I was just focused on working on those and trying to maintain my fitness in monk mode still, but really just prioritizing the things that I had to work on in my life. So what ended up happening was I ended up getting stagnant. I ended up getting into like a stagnancy type of depression, where I wanted to be doing things. I wanted to be moving forward. I wanted to be making progress in certain areas, but I just couldn't. And so this created stagnancy, right? This created a level of stagnancy within me. And even though I was still working on other things, it created stagnancy because I wasn't working on the thing that I really cared about, that I really wanted to make progress in. And so what happened was, because I spent so long in a state of stagnancy, I almost lost my passion for my growth, right? I lost my passion for life, for trying to evolve, for trying to get better. Lost my passion for my self-improvement, lost my passion for my fitness goals, and trying to become an athlete. And I'm still very passionate about YouTube, but I almost lost passion for uploading to YouTube and really trying to make content, right? But I still really care about YouTube. I still care about the business. It's just for a while, I lost that like drive, that desire to go out and do it. That, like I said, that passion for it, right? And I'm a disciplined person, so I still showed up when I had to. But it's not the same when it lacks passion. And you might even see in some of my recent videos, you might even see that lack of passion, right? It might even be evident in my content. I don't know for sure, because I do love making content regardless, but you might even see that difference in energy, right? And that's just because of stagnancy. That's because we aren't growing as much as we should. We aren't growing as much as we could. And of course, every experience is meant to happen. So like my period of not growing was an experience in and of itself that taught me a lesson that allowed me to grow in a way, right? So it's still a lesson in and of itself, but that period of stagnancy is what kind of kills that passion. It kills that love and that drive for growth. And so I teach in a lot of my other videos, and I can explain it quick here, but when we are in stagnancy, the way to get out of this is to start getting moving, is to start building momentum, is to start finding ways to grow again, right? Finding ways to evolve again, right? Simple things at first, right? Cleaning up your space, cleaning up your room, right? That's a good place to start. Having a clean space and a clean room is almost like a clean slate, right? It's a fresh start for you if you are in that fresh environment, right? Your mind is clear now, and so you can kind of work on and create anything else you want. So you start with your room, and then you kind of go, and because you have a clean room now, you have a clean space now, you go and you can kind of work on other things, right? Like for me, what happened was how I got out of that depression, how I got out of that stagnancy was I cleaned my room, like I said, and there wasn't really much to clean. It was just like a buildup of dust under my bed and around like the edges of the room. So I was just vacuuming, cleaned up my desk, I organized my bookshelf by genre. So like I just did a couple things around my room that were like small tasks that weren't really like super important, but were still just like small things to get the ball rolling. And then right after that, I sat down and I wrote some scripts, right? So right after I did that work, I did some work for my business, right? And this kind of re-sparked that passion, re-sparked that light for me. And so I've gotten moving again, right? And that's kind of where we're at now, is like for the last week or so, I've been starting to catch up on content, get back on my daily uploads, get back on my routines and everything. I'm officially out of school. I'm graduated from school, so now I'm just kind of working on getting into that flow again, right? So that's how I got out, though, was by starting with my room, starting with a smaller habit that was easier for me to do, and then doing a business-based habit, right? And the reason this worked is because I could visibly see the growth, right? I could visibly see the production of what I was doing, right? I could visibly see that I was making progress somewhere, and so that re-sparked my passion, right? That kind of got me out of that stagnancy and that depression, right? And re-sparked my love and my excitement, my joy when it comes to creating, right? When it comes to my work, when it comes to my goals. So obviously we can't completely avoid it, but try to avoid stagnancy at all costs, right? So like when I was going through this period of time, one thing I did not let myself do was just give up and take a break. Maybe I should have, who knows? But I didn't just let myself stop and give up. I was already taking plenty of time off because of just being in that depressive state. I wasn't really working as hard as I could. So when I could work, I was taking advantage of that, right? When I could do things, I was taking advantage of that. And that's why it was easier for me to get out of it, because I didn't lose all of my momentum, right? I didn't just give up completely and totally give in to all these bad habits just because I was going through a bad time, right? There were times where I gave in to habits that I would have preferred not to, right? But for the most part, I kept myself focused even though it was really, really, really difficult, right? I kept myself mentally in the framework that no matter what's happening right now, I'm going to overcome and I'm going to keep moving forward, right? I'm not going to let anything stop me. Nothing's going to get me stuck. Nothing's going to keep me here, right? So I kept maintaining certain habits like my fitness. I made sure to stay on top of my fitness, right? And this allowed me to more easily get out of my stagnancy. Why? Because I didn't lose all of my momentum, right? So now one thing I can do, because I'm still not totally out of like this lingering stagnancy, right? I'm still building that momentum back up. So what'll happen is sometimes I'll get pulled backwards, and one way I can get out of it very easily would be to train, because I've kept that momentum going. So I already have that momentum built up there. So I can go out and train, and I feel good when I train. And so that's a good way to divert my attention back to the goals, right? Is by doing something that feels good. And the things that feel good are the things we practice consistently. So this leads us into why training is so important, right? This leads us into why we need to be training consistently. So the first point is that everybody has their thing, right? Everybody has their unique skill, their unique talent, just the thing that they're good at, right? Their soul gift, or their God-given gift, or just their thing, right? Everybody has it, and if you don't know what it is, right, or you could call it your purpose as well, right? But if you don't know what it is, you can find that out very easily, right? There's ways you can do it. My Probably the best way that I would say you do it is stop distracting yourself, right? So that's the only real way to figure out who you really are, or what your thing is, or what your purpose is to stop distracting yourself. So like, if you get off social media, for example, like if you click off this video X out of YouTube, close your laptop, turn off your phone, throw it into another room for a second, and just kind of sit with yourself for a bit, what is your attention pulled towards? And observe that. Because first it'll probably be your phone. You'll probably want to get up and get your phone again because you're like, what the fuck, this is boring. I would just wanted to watch YouTube. But if you leave the phone alone for a little bit, another desire will come up. Where is your attention being directed towards, right? When you give yourself enough time for this not to be pulled towards something like an addiction, right? Let's say it's you're addicted to junk food, or smoking weed, or any type of drug, alcohol, right? When you notice it's being pulled to these things, bring it back. But then observe when it gets pulled towards something like work, right? So observe what type of work it gets pulled towards, because eventually what will happen is your attention will get pulled towards something that does actually align, right? Because you know what the distractions are, right? You know what's distracting you from what you truly want. And so if you avoid those things, if you stop letting your attention be pulled by those things, then allow your attention to go where it actually naturally flows without the external stimuli, what kind of work it wants to produce, what kind of things it's interested in, right? If you observe that and allow that to be, you can start to understand yourself more. You can start to understand what you truly want and where you truly want to go. So like an ideal example would be you're sitting in your room and honestly just like staring at the wall, or like if you have a notebook, I would have a notebook, right? Writing down ideas. So you're just staring at the wall, you're thinking, what would I want to do? What would I like to do? And you kind of just get this burst of inspiration to go and get into the gym. Let's say you wanted to be a bodybuilder for a while, but you've just not really known how to get into it. Now you get that burst of inspiration in that moment that you are without stimuli, right? That's the thing you want to go and pursue. Because when you are stimulated, right? So let's say you're on social media. Your attention's going to get pulled towards many, many, many different things, right? 1,000 different things at once. But when you have no external stimuli, when you're not taking some sort of drug, when you're not on social media, it's just you and you will naturally get pulled towards the thing that aligns the most, right? So the thing that is most you. So everybody has their thing. And the reason why training is so important for people is because everybody needs to be working on their thing, right? Everybody needs to be training and developing their skill and their thing, right? So, for example, if my thing, for example, is sports, being an athlete, and then my thing is teaching. My thing is understanding knowledge on a complex level and then teaching it in a simple way, right? So those are my things, right? My things are sports, specifically snowboarding, and like kind of like flow based sports, right? Sports that feel very like effortless, like a natural flow state, right? So I like to be in that natural flow state and movement, right? So that's one of my things. And then my other one is teaching, taking very complex ideas and breaking them down in a way that anybody can understand. So for me, what I need to be doing, what I should be doing, now that I know that thing, what I should be doing is every single day I should be working on some form of content, right? Whether that's an ebook or whether that's YouTube content. And I should be training daily. I should be working on my skills as an athlete daily, right? Just because I'm a good athlete doesn't mean I can just be lazy in my training and still expect the same result, right? because it's my thing, that means it's the thing that I need to train the most. It's the thing I need to work on the most because it is my thing. It is my purpose, right? And so because everyone has their thing, everybody really has something they should be training. Everybody has something they should be working on. Problem is, a lot of people will say, well, I don't have the time, or I don't know what my thing is, right? And like I just said, you can figure that out. And if you don't have the time, if this is really your thing, like if this is your purpose, you should make the time. You should be making the time for it. And I know that that may sound ignorant because a lot of people may be in certain situations where they can't just make extra time. But you should really sit down and think about it and look at if this is really your thing, which if it is your thing, you'll know, right? And if it's not your thing, that's the dilemma, because if it's not your thing, there's no reason for you to make extra time for it. But if it is truly your thing, if it is truly your purpose, you should sit down and think about, well, this other thing that I'm doing that's currently in the way, is that worth it, right? Is that worth the trade-off? Is that worth me not fulfilling my purpose? And I'll talk about how important the purpose is, right? How important your thing is in just a second. But really think about, is this other thing that I'm doing more important? And if it is, so be it, right? You don't have to fulfill your purpose here. You have another lifetime to do so. You have infinite lifetimes to do so, right? So it is what it is. But you will be more fulfilled working on that thing. You'll be more fulfilled working towards that purpose. So that leads me into the next point, actually, funny enough. So the next point is that training, growing, and improving every day is the key to fulfillment, is your key to fulfillment, right? So fulfillment, as I mentioned before, doesn't come from the achievement of the goal, right? It doesn't come from you actually getting to the end goal. It comes from the process of learning, the process of growing that happens on the way to the goal. So going through the work that will allow you the growth that gets you to a point where your goal is now within reach, right? Working on growing and developing yourself to that point, that's where we find fulfillment. And so what we can actually do is we can be fulfilled no matter where we are in life. There is no point in the journey where we shouldn't be fulfilled, because each point in the journey has an opportunity for growth. If you look around you right now, there is going to be an opportunity for growth, whether you can see it yet or not, right? If you're observant enough and you try to look for it and you try to find it, you will see it because it's there. It's always there. There's always some opportunity for you to grow, right? If there wasn't an opportunity right here, right now for you to grow, then, well, reality wouldn't operate that way. Reality simply doesn't operate that way, right? Because past and future don't exist, right? So you can't just expect to wait until some future scenario where you're presented with this opportunity to grow and you didn't miss out. It's not off in the past. The past doesn't exist either. Right now is the only point in time that there is and ever will be, right? So right now, look around and see what there is for you to work on, because there's going to be something. There's going to be some opportunity for you to grow. It could simply be that you're watching fucking TikTok while watching this video, right? Turn off TikTok and pay more attention to this video. Or it could be that you're watching this video as a distraction. Maybe you're not actually doing what you need to be doing, and so you're just watching this video as cope instead, right? So observe, where can you find some form of growth? And yes, I just told a bunch of people to click off. I don't care. Observe where you can find an opportunity to grow, right? And when you do this on a constant basis, when you're constantly looking for that next opportunity, right, you get into this flow of growth, right? You get into this growth flow, right? And then what happens there is you find fulfillment and you maintain fulfillment, right? You maintain fulfillment for as long as you're going, right? As long as you don't stop trying to grow, which is very hard once you've started, right? I know for a fact that everybody watching this video who had heard of self-improvement before, right? Before they heard of self-improvement, it was fine, right? They were fine living the way they were. But as soon as they heard about it, as soon as you learned about the idea of it, right? You couldn't let it go. Even if there were points where you fell off, you couldn't fully let it go, right? Because we know that this is where we find true fulfillment. This is where we find our true happiness, right? And so naturally, what happens is we really can't fully go back. And the only option here, the only option now is to move forward, is to keep going with it, right? And that won't be a problem because it feels better to do so. It's more fulfilling to do so, right? So the next thing I have is discipline. So if you have your thing, right? So you have your purpose, your thing, your skill that you're working on, right? You should be training daily. You should be training and working on it every day, even if it's just half an hour a day. I recommend a lot more, but not a lot of people have more, right? But I would recommend at least a half an hour a day just working on your craft, working on your skill, right? And because coming back daily and developing this skill, because there are going to be days when you don't want to, right? This is going to build discipline. This is going to make you more disciplined, right? Because you are consistently working on the thing, even if you don't always want to, right? And that's the point of training. That's why training is so important, because when it comes to training, you can't just start training. You can't just work on your skills for a little bit and then stop and expect to get the results, right? You have to consistently work at it. And by consistently working at it, that's how you grow, right? That's how you get better. And then doing that will build discipline. Will build will build a level of accountability, and it will build a level of being able to get things done, right? Being able to work through problems, being able to find solutions, right? And obviously there are many other things that can do this as well, but better than anything else is your thing, is training your skill, your purpose, right? Is working on developing that purpose, because that's the thing that you will love the most. That's the thing that you have the most passion for, and so it's the thing that you will seek the most growth within as well. So next point is creating something of value. So when we want to create something of value, what we do is we work at it, right? We come across a problem, we overcome that problem, and we get a little bit better. And then we work at it again. And then we come across a similar problem or a completely different problem. And we overcome that problem, and we learn about it, and then we get a little bit better, right? And then we do it again, and then we do that one more time, and another time, and then one more time after that. And we basically keep doing this consistently until we become so good that we can create a product that is truly of value, right? We become so skilled, we become so good at what we do that we can create something that is truly valuable, right? True value comes from the development over time, right? So let's talk about information, for example. So I have a certain knowledge set, and I'm not going to talk about it yet because I have videos coming out about it, but I have a certain knowledge set, and you can check the description of this video if you're interested, because I have my ebooks ready to go and released. So check out the link in the description. My Stand Store website will bring you to my Stand Store, and you can buy my very first ebook on this knowledge set, and I will be talking about it in later videos. Don't worry, I'm not keeping this from anybody. But I have this specific knowledge set. Now, if I were to have learned about it, which I learned about it last year, if I were to have learned about it and then immediately started making content on it, problem with that is the content would have come out good, right? Because I'm a smart person, I can learn quickly, right? I can absorb information very well. So it would have come out really good, right? A lot of people would have liked it. But the thing is, instead what I did was I developed that knowledge over time. So I worked on the little knowledge set, right? I worked on the thing, right? I developed my skills within the thing. And in doing so, I developed my knowledge base on the thing. And so now that I've created my ebook, since I've done it a year later, after using the information for so long, after developing my skills, after failing time and time and time again, and then overcoming it, now I'm in a position where I can write a very, very, very good ebook, right? A very valuable ebook that is full of a lot of information and a lot of very key and essential information for this practice, right? So that happened because of my development of the skill over time, because I had trained the skill over time, right? And now I have a product that is truly of value, right? I have a product that I can truly say is going to provide a lot of valuable information, a lot of valuable knowledge. And that's because I worked on and developed the skill. I developed my knowledge on it first. Right? So if you're looking to create something of true value, look at any professional athlete, right? If you want to create something of true value, right? If you want to be the best of the best at something, then you have to develop that skill consistently over time, every single day, right? You have to keep going at it every day, and you have to keep getting better every single day, right? So when you want to create something of value, it's important that you're training the skill, right? It's important that you're working on and developing not only your knowledge base within that skill, but your ability to produce, right? So like writing, for example, I just wrote my first ebook. So obviously it's not going to come out as good as my 10th ebook will. So you have to actually develop these skills in order to create more value. All right, so next thing is raising self-worth. So my main point with this is just that if you have a skill that you're working on every day, right? If you have a skill that you know that you're good at, you're going to have a lot more self-belief. You're going to have a lot more confidence. You're going to be a lot more sure of yourself, right? Because you've proven first that you can do this thing, right? You can do this skill. And when it's a skill like your purpose, when it's something like your real thing, right? This is something that really, really sits with us, right? So like if I was good at something I didn't really care about, which I'm not going to brag. There's a lot of things I'm good at that I just could care less about, right? And that's really not a brag. It's just, it is what it is, right? So like there's a lot of things that I'm good at, that I'm skilled at, that I don't do, right? That I just will not do, that I don't care to be doing, right? And then there's a lot of skills that I have that I would like to have, and that I wish I had, and that I wish I was good at, right? And that I enjoy doing, but I don't have the skill, right? And so the things that I have the skill in but don't care about doesn't affect my confidence much, right? Like I don't feel very confident about something that I don't think about or don't do on a daily basis, even if I'm good at it, right? But the things that let's say I'm not good at, that I want to be good at, if I were to develop my skills there, that would directly build my confidence, right? Because it's something that I can actually visibly see on a consistent basis, because it's something I'm always doing, right? And so I can always see whether or not I'm doing good in it, right? And so let's say it's your purpose, right? The thing you're constantly thinking about, constantly working on. If you have a level of skill within that, you're going to have a level of confidence that is unwavering, that is undeniable, right? Because you know, right? You know that you have this skill. You know that you're good at this thing, right? And you love this thing, right? So it makes you feel good. It makes you feel good about yourself. It makes you feel confident in yourself, right? It makes you feel excited to show that skill off to someone else who might be interested, right? And so you have this level of confidence that you wouldn't have if you were working a job and just building your skills there, but you don't really care about the job. Yeah. And the last thing is just enriching the soul. So training itself, right? Working on and developing the self, working on and developing your skill and your purpose is enriching for the soul, right? It adds to the soul. It adds to the being, right? It gives you a level of essence that you can't get anywhere else, right? And so I'm going to go a little bit more into detail on this in the next section, but just quickly, when we're training and we're developing a skill, right? When we are refining our knowledge base on something and building up our ability to execute on that something, this is enriching for the soul, because the soul is an eternal being. It knows all. It is basically God, right? So the soul itself can't really experience what it's like to not know something and work to develop that knowledge. So experiencing that here, right? Training for something consistently and developing that skill here actually enriches the soul. It enriches the being. And it adds more essence to you, because you are refining the impurities of yourself and bringing out more of your pure being, right? And then so how is the soul actually enriched by experience? So your true being, right? The true being is not your human self. It is not your brain. It is not your body. It is not your self, your ego, right? Your identity, right? It is the being. It is the inner being. It is it is your consciousness, right? It is your awareness. It is the I am within, right? So the book, The Power of Now, explains this really, really well. And so I would recommend reading that book for anybody interested in awakening consciousness, right? I think that's the best book for awakening consciousness. But your true being, right? Your true essence is within, right? It is that I am within. It is that awareness. It is that consciousness, right? And so that consciousness is enriched by the experience of life, because it is experiencing aspects of itself, right? It is experiencing certain parts of itself through challenge, through trial and error, through breaking through the walls that we face on a day-to-day basis, right? And this is the purpose of life, because this process is very, very enriching, as I've been saying, to the soul, right? It adds a lot of essence to you. It adds to who you are. So next point is your purpose on earth, right? So your purpose for being on earth, and this is a universal purpose, but your purpose for being here is evolution, right? Your purpose for being here is growth. Your purpose for being here is to face and learn and understand yourself, right? It is to face who you are and develop yourself within this limited construct, within this limited reality. And so we're meant to, while being limited beings, right, while not having our full essence, our full power, our full ability, we're meant to break down the self and rebuild it so that it gets a little bit closer to that, right? It gets a little bit closer to reflecting the soul, reflecting the true being. And so this is a universal purpose. Everybody's specific purpose is a little bit different, but it all achieves the same purpose, which is evolution, which is growth, which is achieving the next level in humanity, right? And so the soul, when we are training our thing, right, when we're training consistently, no matter what it is, when we're training that skill consistently, right, the soul feels fulfilled, because this is work towards developing ourselves, right? This is work towards becoming the better version of us, right? And so you are fulfilling your purpose just by working towards your purpose, right? Just by working towards your thing. Because your real purpose is the growth that you experience on the way, not the achievement itself. And so the beauty of experience is that we live in this dualistic world. We live in this world where we are quite limited, right? But that is the beauty of this experience, is the challenges that we face, is the difficulty that we face, right? Because this leads us to a level of growth that we couldn't achieve on our own, right? We couldn't achieve this kind of growth if we weren't living within this type of a reality, right? If we weren't living on planet Earth and experiencing reality from this lens. And so we're able to experience living life, right, on a day-to-day basis, rather than knowing all, rather than being all. And we experience this limited, constrained, confined version of reality with this limited perception of what this reality is. And so the beauty of experience is that there are infinite experiences, right? There are infinite possibilities. You can do and be anything, right? And so the beauty is that we're here to recreate ourselves. We're here to rebuild ourselves, break ourselves down first, but rebuild ourselves, right? And when we rebuild ourselves, we can rebuild ourselves into anything that we want, right? Any version of us that we want to become. And most of us want to become the absolute best version. But any version of ourselves we want to become, we can embody and we can create, right? And that is the beauty of this experience, is that we have that ability. So last thing I want to talk about quickly is flow state. So when it comes to training and when it comes to creation, like let's say it's some form of art, or if you're training for a sport or as a bodybuilder, right? Flow state is another key when it comes to finding fulfillment and happiness, right? So if you're building your skill, right, if you're training your skill, if your thing is, let's say your thing is soccer, right? I play a lot of soccer. So let's say your thing is soccer and you're training every day, right? You're building that skill. So what's going to happen over time is, as your focus develops, because your focus will develop the more you do this, the more you go out and train consistently, the more your focus develops, the more susceptible you become to flow. So when you are training daily, after, I'd say a couple weeks, but I don't know the exact amount of time, but I'd say a couple weeks. After about a couple weeks, I'd assume that for most people at least, you're very susceptible to flow within this specific activity. And this happens naturally because when you are consistently working at it, you're developing your skills, you're developing the neural pathways, your brain is slowly learning to understand more about how to actually do this specific task, right? And so what can start to happen is the brain can stop overthinking the task and allow for flow a lot easier, right? And so this becomes a daily flow state activity. This becomes a consistent flow state that you achieve on a day-to-day basis. And the beauty of this is, like we mentioned earlier, how happiness is created in growth, right? And fulfillment is also created in growth. So what happens is we end up fulfilled. We end up becoming happy just within the activity itself, just within the flow state of the activity itself, right? And that becomes the most fulfilling part, is the actual activity itself, is the flow state within that work. And the other thing is, when we start to get into this flow state, and that's why training is so important, because the consistency creates this effortless flow, we actually become more productive, right? We can create more, we can grow more, right? We can make more progress a lot faster because we are in consistent flow states. So flow state is, and as far as I know, is the best, is the optimal state for growth, is the only state where we can grow at a level equal to a flow state, right? There's nothing else that I can compare to a flow state, is what I'm trying to say. So flow state is the optimum state for growth. It is the optimum state for development. Why? Because the brain is no longer fighting, the brain is no longer resisting, right? It is simply going with the activity. And so naturally the rewiring within the brain that needs to happen will happen a lot faster and will happen a lot easier, because in flow state the brain is no longer resisting the change, right? The brain is no longer resisting the effort. And so if we sustain this, maintain this, and keep pushing ourselves, keep working at the skill, if it's soccer, right? Let's say we keep training our shots, right? And we stay in this flow state, and we continue to train our shots within this flow state. What will happen is eventually, you will essentially, you will have maintained this state of flow so long that the level of skill that you have within flow, because skill while in flow and skill while out of flow is completely different, right? Your skills while in flow will start to become your natural skills, right? Will start to become your natural ability. And this happens over consistent effort, right? Consistent training day to day. And then the last thing is that flow actually creates true inner peace, right? Because it removes all distraction. It removes all extra stimuli. It removes all extra directions for our attention, right? And there's only one direction left, right? There's only one place for our attention to go. And so because it's flowing fully and freely in this direction, this allows for inner peace, right? Because there is movement, there's motion, there's movement forward, there's no resistance within, right? And that resistance within is what gets rid of peace, right? The only reason we don't have inner peace is because we are resisting our current situation. We are resisting our current reality, right? And so if we stop resisting the current reality, if we stop trying to push it away and distract ourselves, and we just focus our attention and flow with life instead of working against life, right? We actually begin to create and maintain a state of true inner peace, right? So that's all I have for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. This was a bit of a longer one. Yeah, so if you are interested any more content on self-improvement, anything about training, and developing your skills, you can click the subscribe button. And if you want, you can go and check out the Stand Store link in the description. I just have one ebook up right now, but you can go and buy that ebook. It's on sexual energy transmutation, or semen retention. So go check that book out. There will be other ones coming very, very soon. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed, make sure you click the subscribe button and like. Other than that, I'm out of here. Peace.